because digital innovation and digital capabilities have been cascaded at all organizational levels. I mean, every corporate professional, every executive has learned to understand that they need to constantly question and scan the market. And so in the end, it's not even philanthropy. It's actually, an investment in a future that we can all benefit from.
Absolutely. Manuel, you're on mute.
Sorry. Uh, Thank you. And really, in my mind, we're building a pyramid, right? And I we tend to think top down, right, from AI and digital transformation and all this. And it made me think actually that on the pyramid, there is another part, which is, do we have really the right data, the quality data that we can use for tools such as AI or quantum computing? Because we talk about data biases a lot. We talk about data that it's not really has conflicts in the way in the way it's introduced, right? And that connects back to Isabella's question about ethics, right? It's a lot of data. It's unethical, and I hear from my students at Cornell, AI is biased, and I keep telling them, no, humans are biased. AI is a tool. The tool is not biased. It's just getting. So thank you for your response about the ethics and the role of ethics in the pyramid and the role of biases, of course, human bias. And if I give you a crystal ball, what do you see in 4 or 5 years from now? Uh, take curator, take what you're doing at curator, take what you know and you've done with the World Economic Forum and all the other activities, and try to look through this big crystal ball and maybe share it with us.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how strong my futurist persona is, or having magical powers at a crystal ball. But if I look at some patterns, right, with some of the transformations, and again, if I take simply digital innovation, scaling patterns across organization and society, to what's happening now with sustainability, to what's happening now with AI. It starts initially, with a cohort of early adopters, and people see it initially as maybe a capability that brings them competitive advantage, right? I mean, when it comes to digital transformation, how it started, of course, organizations were at the time investing, trying to gain some competitive edge. But if we fast forward, to a couple of years later, I mean, many organizations no longer really need a chief digital officer because digital innovation and digital capabilities have been cascaded at all organizational levels. I mean, every corporate professional, every executive has learned to understand that they need to constantly question and scan the market and think, is there any new digital capability that can make my job? It doesn't matter if you're in finance, human resources, procurement, or other function that can make their job faster, better, cheaper through digital capabilities. And I think people realize, that it's their responsibility, and they have a budget, and they can go and find partners and vendors, and invest in technologies or train themselves or hire new people, that can bring those digital capabilities. I think it's the same happening right now in sustainability. Unfortunately, still a lot of corporations, a lot of professionals think, oh, our company just hired a head of sustainability. We're covered. And that couldn't be, farther from the truth, right? It takes the same level of cascading down. A chief sustainability officer, it's usually just an evangelist and trying, to accelerate that leadership narrative that everyone needs to take responsibility for sustainability. I keep telling people, look, if you're a corporate executive and you have a budget, that budget has a carbon footprint. Start thinking how you're lowering the carbon footprint of that budget. And you're the only one who can do that. I mean, you can wait until it comes top down in your force, but doing things bottom up, but doing things from the functional expertise, things can be accelerated a lot. And it's going to be, I'm sure, the same with AI. I mean, now we're having kind of this funny dance where, corporations are totally afraid of, you know, deploying AI capabilities at scale for their employees. And they put all sorts of, rules, and, you cannot access OpenAI or Perplexity and so on. And then the employees bring their iPads, personal iPads, and, everything they have to do on the corporate side, they do it on the personal device so that they avoid, all of this. So there are new ways of shadow IT. People are not comfortable, but this is just a normal stage, I think, until we get comfortable with things. And of course, governance, it's also important to do things in the proper way. But fast forward, to maybe 5 years, I think, we will not have the same discussion maybe about AI now. We're really excited about all these new capabilities, significantly increasing our productivity, taking away, parts of our jobs, which were anyway highly repetitive and, not exciting for us. And then it's going to be, of course, a given that we are investing our time in more human sides of, productivity, taking creativity, taking connections, human empathy, and everything else that can be, designed or managed in an AI process will be done. I think the same, when it comes probably decades from now, people will look back to today and think, how did we ever allow people to drive a car manually, right? I mean, we were forced to for historical reasons, but unfortunately, there are still millions of people dying in car accidents every year. Fast forward, a few decades, probably, when we're going to have self-driving cars at full scale, that's going to be a no-brainer that, it's the AI who should be in charge of that. And I think, sometimes I bring similar discussions even, with some of the corporate responsibilities people have today. I mean, we're going to look back to in history and think, how did we ever allow a human to make an allocation of millions of dollars without leveraging, data science, without leveraging, the help of an AI to make sure they take away all that human bias, to make sure, that they reduce the risk. So yeah, I think that will be my 5 year. Maybe it sounds science fiction, but I think, in 5 years, that's where we're going to get with the speed of AI advancement that we are facing right now.
And another futurist today is Isabella. So I don't know if you, Isabella, you want to add a little bit of color to the picture, and then I'll add some color myself.
Well, never leave behind. I'm gonna add something else as well. That sounds fun. Yeah, I definitely appreciate Christian's humble attitude and also the very insightful the things that he's been encountered through his work, whether it's in the World Economic Forum or the current startup. It's very shocking a lot of time how we neglect the fact that it's very obvious. For example, people are still struggling to get access to electricity, and here we're having this massive discussion, all these value assessments about the artificial intelligence without acknowledging the other side of the world. And also, you mentioned how change management it's more about human mind other than the actual fact technology, which is super critical for us to be aware. I do speakings about change management to corporate, so I'm fully aware of everything you brought up. At the end, it's about our human mind, and currently all these technology advancement, to me, emphasize on a systematic change. Like you mentioned, people has to bring their own iPad, but that's not going to be sustainable. Eventually, the wave's going to catch up, and we need to move on to the next step. But the current corporate world, they're holding on their own belief, and all these. There's a lot of things we can talk about, but fundamentally, I believe in our human mind moving forward is to discover our untapped or our already known talent, our gifted, talented as a human being, rather than competing with the machine learning. Manuel Noel, in my book, I wrote about how the technology kind of downgrade our human mind because we relied on it blindly too much. And back then, there were no ChatGPT yet when I published this for 2022, and it's just like 6 months after. Let's all see what the ChatGPT has done to our human mind, right? Like what used to take me about 2 hours to draft, let's say, a proposal or something, now I can do it, to be honest, 20 minutes with the help of it. And how do we define the bottom line, like what's the value in it? Again, before it was out of our mind, but now with ChatGPT everything needs to be reevaluated. So this all connect together with the ethics we talk about, the systems, and how we push forward the sustainability concept, right, to change the society at large. So it's a very grand topic, I agree. But I believe in the new generations, the concept that we need to adopt from this transformation. There's no way back. We need to change systematically to really make a change. Um, uh, so that's for now that I want to share. I can talk this all day long.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if you know Christian, but she's referring to her book, The Digital Mind of Tomorrow, which I'm joking and I'm calling it the digital mind of today because, she was only a few months before when she published the bestseller was only a few months before the ChatGPT got out under the wraps. As you mentioned, by the way, Christian, AI had been around a long time in different shapes and forms. But now he decided to talk to us, which made the revolution. It's not the fact the underlying technologies had been long in process. You mentioned, for instance, protein unfolding or folding, and that was done a few years back before ChatGPT. So, big minds, I think, was the technology. But I promise a little bit of color to, and I'll throw one more shade of color on your crystal ball. And the regulations in 5 years will evolve in Europe, the CSRD primarily, and the data regulations. And I think this will also give some color and some direction to the convergence of AI, digital transformation, and sustainability. Because really, if you look at the regulations, you cannot pull these amounts of data on a spreadsheet. One is talking especially about the supply chain and the report on the supply chain. I know Shell has 30,000 suppliers, for instance, in the US. So I don't know a spreadsheet of that size.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting, of course, when we bring the policy angle into the discussion, especially here in Europe. I mean, you mentioned the example of CSRD, right? So the new mandatory sustainability reporting. Um, it's really interesting, the trend we observe right now, since through the work we do for Curator.com, we discuss with sustainability corporate departments all the time, and many of them complain how overwhelmed they actually are with this new mandatory sustainability reporting, to the point that many organizations or many teams have to allocate almost their entire team's capacity to sustainability reporting. And there is no time to implement sustainability projects, to implement, initiatives that can actually decarbonize and reduce the carbon footprint of their corporation. So that's obviously not a very pleasant side effect of this type of sustainability reporting policy introduced by European Union. But I think there is maybe a little bit of a waking up point a lot in European policy, at least, because they look at some of those side effects, such as with the sustainability reporting. They look at what's happening even with AI reporting, AI policy. I mean, it was funny when the latest iPhone was introduced with Apple Intelligence, and it became viral very quickly that most of those new Apple Intelligence capabilities are not available in Europe due to the AI regulations. So that's obviously not also something that consumers appreciate in Europe, right? And in the same time, from a lot of people came across the new competitiveness report for Europe, written by or coordinated by Mario Draghi. And those are some very strong signals of alarm for Europe. They're not just theoretical. I mean, we see what's happening with corporations like Volkswagen right now, for the first time in history, they have to fire, a very significant number of employees in countries like Germany, where, unions Works councils are extremely strict. So, maybe even a couple of years ago, this would have been something unimaginable. Now it's happening. So there are many, many signals, combined with statistical, list of top innovation companies. I mean, Europe has been having a company like SAP for a long time, and the next SAP, is still waiting to happen, while everything else, seems to come either from the US or China. So especially in Europe, when you put all these things together, people are kind of panicking a bit, and they realize that they need to either recalibrate the existing policy or come up with a new set of policy that can accelerate things in the right direction rather than making things, proactively too carefully designed in a way that stops innovation.
Thank you. And actually, fixing policy, I see it as a positive, right? So if policies get too much, overbearing, but I think the end result will be still that the sustainability is here to stay. I just read yesterday an article about ESG in the US, and despite of all the political noise and what we hear in the newspapers, there are more and more companies reporting and following on ESG in the US on their own, even before the legislation is coming into power. And there are some, attempts to regulation, especially in the area of double materiality in the US as well. So I think it's like I see that there's a pendulum which moves maybe a little bit to the extreme, but then eventually will come back to the center, and that's where sustainability and AI will definitely meet. And that's where AI actually has some work to do as well in reducing the amount of energy.
Mm.
During this conversation, I was thinking of a measurement of AI electricity consumption. I decided to call it a Chicago, right? So how many Chicago city, consumption of electricity takes to generate AI results.
No,
So
it's very good
we have work
observation.
to do.
Yeah, no, indeed. Yeah. And I can resonate with what you're saying regarding the focus in the US on ESG sustainability. I had the chance to spend a full week at New York Climate Week, and basically getting a lot more exposure to the American point of view on this. And indeed, it's promising. I mean, ultimately, uh, people, even if, let's say, policy is slow, or even if corporate interests maybe, are slightly different, it still comes back to the humans. I mean, policies written by humans, corporations are made out of humans, and step by step, humans can no longer ignore the facts of climate change. I mean, I just have in my mind right now this satellite image with, three or four hurricanes, right, heading towards the US in the same time. Um, those kind of things, make you realize, okay, there is a giant cost we're paying for not taking sustainability more seriously, and we rather change our approach to proactive rather than what we've been doing for the last 100 years, reactive.
And when we observe that actually we connect sustainability and risk, what I've noticed, the first set of companies, they really uh, enforce sustainability on other companies and on people are the insurance companies, which are part of the financial system.
Yeah,
And the insurance companies are saying, risk is uninsurable anymore in Florida, for instance,
yeah,
if you are too close to the coast. We're not going to pay. We're not going to offer you an insurance, even if it's three times, four times, five times more than you're paying last year. We
correct.
simply bail out of the state.
Yeah, yeah, it's very real for those people indeed.
So, well, it's a tremendous discussion. Um, I think we want to have more questions for you,
Yeah,
Isabella.
wrap up with a piece of advice, particularly for younger generations. I really see them as the next, I mean, they're already in force in shaping the world. Christian, what's your advice to them in particularly, I mean, in career in sustainability or digital transformation, skill-wise, and also mentality-wise? Feel free to share everything you wanted to share.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, I'm also inspired by the young generations. It feels that at least when it comes to topics to sustainability, they resonate a lot more. Maybe because, they grew up with the facts in front of their daily lives rather than something that became more obvious for the older generations at some point in their life. I think, I hear a lot the challenge that many, younger people, let's say people who just finished their studies, they say, well, look, couple of years ago, I was at the end of high school. I decided to go on a specific path for my university studies. But now I graduated, and actually, I would love to do something in sustainability and innovation. But I've studied something completely different, and I feel like I have to continue my university path. I would say, I will always still follow your heart. I mean, you can always do another degree. And actually, I think there's a very unique window of opportunity right now. There's a lot more demand for sustainability skills for simply for people who want to work in sustainability than there is demand. Then there is supply. I mean, of course, universities have adapted in the recent years, and they have all sorts of new curriculums and programs for sustainability. But still, it will take a long time until all these people will reach the job market, until they'll have some years on the corporate side to make themselves attractive for other roles. So I think, yes, the best time to maybe look into sustainability was a couple of years ago, but the second best time is today. And I mean, I'm also an example for this. When I decided to launch curator.com, I had a drive to trying to do something in sustainability. I didn't have, the expertise, but I knew that there are so many inefficiencies in this space and so many things where actually bringing digital innovation and sustainability together, exactly what you're doing at your institute, can be, a superpower. And I encourage everyone to think from this perspective. You might think that, what you've done so far in your career or in your education, it's not directly relevant for sustainability. But that's not the case. Usually you find an angle that will give you an edge, will find an angle that will give you, a different narrative, which is absolutely needed. And again, we don't really have the luxury of time. So the more people are shifting towards sustainability innovation, the better, because then there are, more brains, more people collaborating to hopefully put us on a path that's more acceptable from a climate change perspective to future generations.
And I can attest from AKFI, we have many students which come as interns. What is encouraging me recently, we have we had two. We have one high school student, and she's already preparing, and from high school, working with us, especially in the area of information and marketing for AKFI.
Wow.
So I see it in real life, and we have universities approaching now AKFI for practical programs with students and interns. So definitely evolving in that direction. And I know Isabella is also deeply involved with AKFI, so she can attest to that as well.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you both. Thank you, Christian. A lot of mindset tips. I love that because I think our action it's a consequence of our mind. So the mentality is really crucial in shaping a sustainable future, the world that we're gonna transform from the previous system to the next system. Thank you again, and thanks to our audience for tuning in. Make sure you're joining us every week for a new episode of AKFI's Actionable ESG Talk Series, where you can gain new perspectives on how to mitigate risk and create value by integrating ESG and digital transformation. Until next week, goodbye for now. Bye, Manuel. Bye, Christian.
Bye,
Thanks for the
Christian.
opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for having.